Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Umar Salim. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Rafael. Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for taking the time to share your expertise, presenting a little bit more about the United Arab Emirates where you are living. And for those watching for the first time this video, the idea is to create a project, which we're doing now, to invite international experts in different markets around the world to talk about business in their markets, but focusing a lot on the cultural and communication aspects of doing business in their countries. So we have Mr. Umar Salim, who I will call Umar, joining us from the UAE, this time, United Arab Emirates. And we have 7 questions, which we have been asking all the interviewees, and we will begin now. The first question, Umar, thank you so much again for your presence. Tell us a little bit more about you and what kind of work that you do, please.
Thank you so much, Rafael, once again for having me for this interview to talk about the cultural nuances of the Middle East, UAE in particular. And I'll also touch upon Saudi, if you would allow me to, as we do a lot of work in Saudi. So I run a boutique corporate finance advisory firm called Maven Investment Partners. We are based out of Dubai, and we do a lot of M&A buy-side and sell-side transactions. So we help our investors buy businesses and or sell businesses. And at the same time, we help them with the fundraising, both debt and equity. That's one vertical of the business. The second vertical is transformation and restructurings. So we do a lot of business transformation and restructuring work across family offices and portfolio companies of private equity firms, and basically help improve their bottom line and EBITDA performance. And the third thing we do is corporate governance initiatives. So we help companies with their board charters, committee charters. We take on independent board positions, and we actually prepare companies for an IPO or listing on one of the exchanges in the region. So in a nutshell, that's who Maven is. And I've been in the region since 1996, so 30 years. So I would say I'm pretty familiar with the local lay of the land and the do's and don'ts of doing business and the cultural sensitivities and nuances in the region.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Umar. And it's great to know that you cover the region, you have access and experience, contacts in the across the region. So for those watching, interested in reaching out to Umar to learn more about how to do business in Dubai, you can also learn a little bit more how it works in other countries. He has access. He works in different countries. So it's important that you mention this to us as well. So thank you. For the second question, what are some things you recommend people to do or say when they first meet and speak with a person that they might be interested in doing a project or business opportunity together in the UAE? And also, what should they not say or do? This is the first breaking the ice moment, the first contact that they have.
So I would say Middle East is a more relationship-driven society than a transactional society. And one should always start a meeting with pleasantries. A good way to start a meeting is say, Assalamu alaikum, which basically means peace be upon you, and responding with wa alaikum assalam. That's definitely goes well with the local business community. And I think the other thing one should try and do is establish, before you get into the details of the transaction or what you're there for, which is very much I would say a Western style of operating and conducting meetings. Here it's more reserved and it's more slow. You've got to first spend a bit of time understanding the other person, where they're coming from, their background, their little bit about their family, etc., etc. So Middle East, I would say the most important thing in a meeting is just take it slow and establish a personal connection with the local party. And so that's definitely the what you should be doing. What you should not be doing is talk about religion, talk about things that are sensitive to Islam, for example. I would not talk about alcohol or pork or other similar things. I would also dress appropriately. If you're a man, I would wear a formal business attire, and if you're a lady, it would be a little conservative side. Also on the handshakes, if you're shaking a man's hand, that's perfectly fine. But with a lady, I would just let her sort of extend her hand first for a handshake. And I think another thing to do in this part of the world is you've got to be prepared for negotiations. So unlike other, I mean, negotiation is a part of any business transaction or any deal. We know this, but I think it's more prevalent in this part of the world. So another thing I would say is do not start with your walk away price. Always add something a little on top, so there is room for negotiation.
Perfect. Very, very clear. Thanks. Well noted. Well noted, and especially the cultural sensitivity part you mentioned as well, and how you approach this breaking the ice moment. So thank you. For this third question, it's a little bit, you dove a little bit into this already, which is very interesting. The third question is, we recognize that it's important to have a deeper cultural understanding of a local place when doing business there. What cultural aspects might be considered when doing business in the UAE?
I think cultural understanding is essential to build trust and to foster long-term success. So one thing one should, and I would also bring in a religious angle to it. So for example, during the prayer time, which is 5 times in a day, but during the working hours, it's about 3 max prayers that you would come across. People tend to, sometimes step away to pray. One should be conscious of that. And during the holy month of Ramadan, when people are fasting from sunrise to sunset, one should not be asking for coffee or tea in meetings, or one should not be going and chewing gum, for example. And even just generally in the office buildings, etc. One should be a bit mindful of the fact that people are, or the Muslims in general, who are a vast majority in this part of the world, are fasting. So one should be really sort of familiar with those kind of things. And again, another very key aspect of doing business and from a cultural standpoint is the hierarchy and decision making. One really needs to respect the hierarchy in the boardrooms. So if you have, for example, the family patriarch sitting there at the head of the table, and you have other family members and management team there, one should give due respect to the head of the family, even though he may not be the key decision maker, or he may want to delegate things to his management team or to the other younger members of the family, G2 and G3 as we call them, second generation and third generation. It's very, very important in this part of the world to give people the respect from a hierarchical standpoint. The other thing I would do is, in this part of the world, from a cultural standpoint, people generally avoid saying no. So that's a very cultural thing. So if somebody does not want to, take your idea further, or doesn't feel fully convinced of the idea that you're presenting to them, whether it's an investment idea or something else, they would just say inshallah, which basically means God willing. Okay, they will not say thank you, I do not like this opportunity, or I would like to decline the opportunity for the following reasons. That's not the cultural way of doing things. They're very polite. They will say inshallah, or they will say let me think about it and we will get back to you. So people come out thinking, I had a good meeting. Whereas you got to read the body language, and sometimes the indirect communication says a lot. The body language says a lot, and one needs to be able to be attuned to that and see, kind of read between the lines.
Great insights. Very, very important, especially if you're a foreigner coming from the western side of the world, and it is a very different approach. So very, very important insights. Thanks so much. Well noted. The fourth question, Umar: if one does not speak Arabic, someone coming into the UAE does not speak Arabic, what do you suggest in order to do to be able to communicate more successfully with the locals and to be able to do business there if they don't speak Arabic?
Rafael, I've been here 30 years, and in my experience, I would say 95% of people in the business community, I'm not talking about people who are sort of, the older, very old generation, or people who are not really into the business community. 95%, if not 99% of them speak English and understand English. They might not be super fluent in it. Some of them, most of them are, by the way. I would say the younger generations are super fluent in English, but most of the even older generations, they understand and they fully speak the language fluently, and they're well traveled, they're well read, They understand the global geopolitics, etc. So it's very rare to come across people and that you would interact with, or a normal business person would interact with, that they would not speak English. But let's say you do come across, and it has happened to us as well in the past, that some people do not, or are not comfortable speaking in English. They understand it, but they're more comfortable speaking in or replying in Arabic, for example. That does happen from time to time. So the best advice I can give in that scenario is take somebody with you to the meeting who does understand and speak the language. So he's kind of plays the role of a translator, if you like, in that meeting. But frankly, I wouldn't worry too much about it because, as I said, a vast majority of people in the business community do speak and converse in English.
That's comforting to know. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. People do have that, that people feel like it's an obstacle when they go to a new country, that they can't speak the language, locals. So it's good to understand that there is a almost 100%, I mean, over 90% fluency with the locals that you're going to be doing business with. So that's good too. That's very clear for the foreigners watching this video. Thank you. For the fifth question, to get better results in visibility or sales, what are your recommendations as the most effective ways to do marketing for products or services in the UAE? This is talk about the channels. How does a foreigner come in? How would he think about doing marketing and sales? How would he approach this in the UAE, please?
So I think in the region, and UAE obviously is very much a significant part of the region. So I think it really depends on the product or service that you're offering. If it's a product, then it's like anywhere else in the world. The standard marketing tools and marketing channels that one would use are applicable here as well in the region. When it comes to services, it's a bit different. And I'm talking about professional services, which is the business that we are involved in. That is more word of mouth. It is more, because these are smaller economies, and it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the business people sort of, control, I would say, 80% of the businesses in general. And people talk, and there is a very big culture in the Middle East of majlises. Majlis basically means a social gathering, and it's like an open house. So most people, most large families or family, leaders will have a majlis in their own home at evening, which is anybody can literally walk in. And I'm serious, there is no security, there is no sort of invitation required. The head of the family will go and sit in his majlis, between certain hours. Let's say it's from 7 till 9. I mean, and it's a known thing. So he just goes and sits. Let's say it's in his back garden, or somewhere in the house, and it's like a U-shaped setting, and most people will come in. They'll pay their respects. They will sit down, and they all chat amongst themselves. So if I, for example, hired a particular advisor for a mandate, let's say for a fundraise, I will be sitting in that majlis between my friends and other sort of colleagues and people, family members, etc., and I will talk about it. So it's a very open society. People talk to each other, and they don't sort of confidentiality, while it's important, but once you're at home and amongst your family and friends, people do tend to be loosen up a little bit, which is quite natural in this part of the world, and quite common in this part of the world. So how you sort of win mandates, and from a marketing standpoint, is do a good job. Obviously, you got to deliver on what you promised you will deliver, and then let the word of mouth, let that do your marketing.
That's very interesting. The way you explain it in detail like that, very interesting for people to understand, especially services. So services, a lot of this word of mouth, networking, relationship building, which you said, is very, very important in this region. It leads us to go ahead.
And I just wanted to add something. And even for us, on the flip side, as service providers, before I take on a new client, for example, in the firm, in the West, you would normally do KYC, you would go do credit checks, you would go and, make sure that you know who your customer is, and, whether they have the ability to pay the bills, and the seriousness of the mandate, etc., etc. Whereas in this part of the world, you just pick up the phone and you call, you know the name, the person, you just call two of his friends or other business associates, and you just ask about, is he or is this gentleman or this lady, are they going to pay on time? And you get the answer. So you know which mandates to accept and which mandates to decline based on that. So it's a very, let's say, open society. People talk, and it's the word of mouth that carries a lot of weight in this part of the world. Sorry.
No, and great point, because as a foreigner coming in, the relationship, the reputation that you will have in that market has a lot to do with this. How you approach, how you relate to the locals. As long as you're transparent, you do the things correctly, the word of mouth will spread, and your reputation will be respected in the market, I'd say. So it's important to have this kind of a connection with the locals. Excellent. And that leads a little bit to our sixth question, which is about the relationship and how do you establish relationship and creating empathy, right? So you create empathy to have a stronger relationship with the locals. And the question goes, if a business partner in the UAE wants to get to know you better so they can build this relationship, invites you to a local coffee or tea place, restaurant, or do even a happy hour via Zoom if they're not there yet. What are the kinds of topics do people in the UAE like to talk about that's not business related, for example? So it is to really focus on this relationship that you're talking about.
So if you look at the demographics of the Middle East and UAE in particular and Saudi and other countries in the GCC, there is a significant portion of expat population. So the locals in these countries are very used to and very accustomed to working alongside and living alongside expat populations. Like Dubai has more than 100 nationalities living side by side. I think the number is like 150 plus, if I'm not mistaken. And locals are curious. They are well educated. They've traveled the world. So they want to understand a bit more about other people's cultures, where they come from. Sometimes, I mean, I see locals know more about a particular country than even the natives of that country do, because they've traveled there, they've gone there for, holidays, etc., depending on their passions and whatnot. And so they're very open. And if they invite you to a outside of work, whether it's in a coffee shop or it's in a restaurant or whatever it is, that shows two things. One, they are willing to spend more time with you and learn more about you as a person. Because like I said earlier, for them, it's very important. The relationship is far more important than the transaction. So they're always looking for long-term relationships, and they want to be able to judge the other person and make sure they can trust the other person, the counterparty. And for that, they would, let's say, want to get to know you at a deeper level. So if they take you out or invite you, and by nature, generally, people in this part of the world are very hospitable. It's not the standard Western culture where work meetings happen during working hours, and then after hours, people sort of tend to go back to their homes, and the business people who are flying in go back to their hotels. Here, it's very much understood that after work and after those discussions have taken place, as part of the hospitable culture, you would be invited to, most likely, to an evening, dinner or something, and and locals love to learn. They want to understand more about your culture, your background, what interests you have. They want to learn, especially the younger generations, more about technology, what's happening in the digital asset world, the crypto space. Sports is another big area. Now, if you see in Saudi in particular, there's a big push on golf. There's a big push on tennis. There's football. So before, you could just sort of talk about other things, but now there is so much Formula One, for example. Now there is so much happening in our own ecosystem here in the region that there's lots of topics of interest, mutual interest, that one can talk about in these after work interactions.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as outsiders, we see more and more activities happening in the region. Like you said, Formula One, the football league is growing a lot in Saudi Arabia. UAE, I know, has a football league. Qatar. So we are exposed more to those things, and so there's a lot of things in common for us to talk about with the locals as well when we get there. There's a lot more of. So that's interesting, very, very interesting too. And another key point you mentioned, so as a foreigner coming in, is that in Dubai, where you live, there's so many other expats, right? So there is a international feel. The locals have this exposure already, most of them perhaps. So you're not going to be the first foreigner come in. They have this understanding of the foreigners, of the different cultures that are around the world, because they already interact with them, of those living there. So that's really interesting to take into account. Us to the last question now, Umar, thanks so much. What one word or a phrase should everyone learn to say in Arabic, and why?
I would say it's one word, and it's shukran, which basically means thank you. And it's just polite, to thank other people for their hospitality, to thank them for their time, to thank them for listening to you. And I think it makes the other person feel appreciated. So if I were to learn one word, and it's very easy, shukran, which basically means thank you.
Then shukran, thank you so much. Shukran. Umar, very clear. I think I've known this word as well. It's a one word that I learned many years ago when I was a kid. You're absolutely right. It's a very important word, and it's not hard to learn to say. So thanks so much. It's very clear. Thanks for taking your time. I really appreciate it. I think it was very rich,
You're welcome.
very rich with content. It's a region that comes out sometimes in the news for other reasons. So we're here. The idea of this is to tell people about the opportunities, how to interact with the locals. There are opportunities, and I invite people who are here to reach out to you. We're going to put the contact information of Umar in this article that we're writing from this interview. So it's important to reach out to him. He knows the region well, so I invite everybody to reach out. Thank you for sharing your insights, recommendations, your experience. I hope this benefits you and your business. And you have any final comments or observations for everyone?
First of all, Rafael, thank you so much for having me. Secondly, I would like to end. You made a point about we are in the media for the wrong reasons at times, and that's very true. I mean, there is stuff that I see on media which is far, far, far from the truth. The region is robust. The region is growing. There's lots of expats moving in. There's lots of potential from an investment standpoint. So I welcome anyone who is interested in participating in the boom of the Middle East, especially in UAE and Saudi. Please do reach out, and we can definitely. And we are actually seeing it. We're getting a lot of clients right now from all over the world that are looking to set up operations in this part of the world for a number of reasons. One of them being safety, security, the tax environment, the trade war that's going on right now between the East and West. So there are a number of, especially I think I was reading a report the other day, more than 600 millionaires moved to UAE alone in the last 12 months. And I'm seeing a lot of very, very high quality families and moving their businesses and their entire operations to the Middle East, especially UAE and Saudi. So if any of your listeners are interested in exploring the investment opportunities in this part of the world, please do reach out.
Thank you. Thank you for reinforcing this point. I think it's very important what you said. So I really hope we're going to be sharing this with everybody so they understand the opportunities that exist and to reach out to you, and that it's a great region. It's thriving, and people should look at it that way as well. So thank you so much, Umar. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Shukran. Have a good day. Thank you.
Afwan.
Thank you.
Shukran. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.